In Russia, more Kremlin critics are being imprisoned as intolerance of dissent grows. Associated Press. Russia under President Vladimir Putin has been closing in on those who challenge the Kremlin. Scores of people have been prosecuted under the new law, and those implicated in high-profile cases have been given long prison terms. One such case concluded Thursday in St. Petersburg, Russia's second-largest city, where a court sentenced artist and musician Sasha Skotchyle NKO to 7 years in prison after she replaced several supermarket price tags with slogans decrying the war. Below are your comments. When are Russians going to act on Putin's repressive regime? The people in prison are likely the ones who should be leading the country towards democracy. What do you expect from a military dictatorship? This is all they know. They imagine they are showing their strength and power, while when you jail or off the opposition act, you ally demonstrates their weakness, their insecurity, their fear. Russia was never a democracy. They tried it but realized it's too hard to change the corruption and dictatorship, and that's what Russians are used to, so it's easier to just leave things be. Just like Afghanistan, the people don't want to fight for democracy. I'm sure Russians are now regretting ever returning Putin back into power in the 2012 election, which some question as not being legitimate. Like in Germany in 1933, Hitler managed to hijack a constitutional government and turned it into an authoritarian regime controlled by him alone. Putin H. Next news. Media report Western officials' estimates of Russian losses. Ukrainska Pravda. Ukraine's partners in the West estimate that Russia's losses since the beginning of its full-time invasion of Ukraine amount to between 300,000 and 400,000 military personnel. Source: The Guardian, citing Western officials who spoke during a briefing on conditions of anonymity detail. Russia has sustained casualties of between 300,000 and 400,000 bleep and wounded in the war in Ukraine. Nay, so far. Below are your comments. Russian people are okay with that? They sure had a problem with these kind of losses in 1917, so much so it cost Tsar Nicholas II and his family their lives, as well as ending the Romanov dynasty. Surprised there hasn't been major protest. Folks, this is easily best investment in combat in U.S. history. 300,000 dead and maimed for life Russian soldiers versus 0 NATO troopers. For a small fraction of our annual DoD budget, the US and NATO have enabled Ukraine to literally destroy half the Russian army. Now add to that major ships, Su. Putin has destroyed his own country and set it back decades. They are so far behind that they are trying to buy back 50-year-old equipment they sold to Third World countries so they can attempt to have Pyrrhic victories against an unyielding nation that has every moral and legal right to self-defense. The Russians are getting beat up pretty badly. They need to get out of Ukraine and never return. Vodka's more expensive than a Russian life under Putin. Next news. Zelensky says Moscow wants to distract world's attention with many crises, will destabilize Balkans. Next. The new voice of Ukraine. Ukraine has evidence of Russia's intentions to start a war between the Balkan countries, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said in comments to African media on November 15. Below are your comments. And what are our plans? Our military budget is larger than the next 10 nations combined. One doesn't build all that military hardware to collect dust. One doesn't fund CIA operations to stand still. No, we're in the business of fomenting war. For instance, read the Rand Corporation's 2019 Why. Then we should sit back, wait and see, which matters are important to the US and its allies. It sure would be nice if NATO had leaders that pursued peace as much as they goaded our adversaries. Putin didn't even have much of an army in February 2022 because he never believed the West actually wanted a war. NATO and Biden proved him wrong. They decided Ukraine would be their new money laundering. No, he and Ukraine has been a distraction of the world, a complete waste of time and materials. Russia will be there long after Ukraine and probably America. The guy is willing to say and do anything to make sure he can secure American welfare. That's what conmen do. Israel does the same thing. Need to let them fight on their own. Let the chips fall where they want. We have no business in either fight and we shouldn't have to buy friends. Next news. Marcos says to meet with Xi to ease tensions in South China Sea. Bloomberg. Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. said he will have a meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping to discuss ways to ease tensions in South China Sea. Most read from Bloomberg. Hamas mastermind who tricked Israel is top target in Gaza. Tunnels. Aston Martin owner Lawrence Stroll sells F1 team stake at £1 billion valuation. Friendly data lift bonds as S&P 500 waivers. Markets wrap Apple plans to make it easier to text between iPhones and Androids. Xi says China seeks to be furry. Below are your comments. Marcos needs to realize he's being set up by the US to be Ukraine-style cannon fodder in a proxy war that the US wants to start against China. He had better wise up for the sake of his country. China will listen to no one and only recognizes what itself believes. Bully, intimidate and harass. Rhetorically, even USA. Other countries did not even respected international tribunal or even UN Security Council intervention. Nothing could be done. War by force is the ultimate endgame. Following the leader and presumed protector by deviating from a truly independent foreign policy won't work, unless you switch to pro-China and give up all your waters. You did years ago, why not this time? Lol. Marcos, you are a nobody. You need to understand that or China will fee on you. Next news. U.S. Senate votes to avert shutdown, leaves out Israel-Ukraine aid. Bloomberg. The U.S. Senate overwhelmingly approved a temporary funding measure to avert a government shutdown, delaying a partisan clash over federal spending until the new year and leaving out emergency aid to allies Ukraine and Israel. Most read from Bloomberg. Hamas mastermind who tricked Israel is top target. In Gaza tunnels, Aston Martin owner Lawrence Stroll sells F1 team stake at £1 billion valuation. F. Reindley, data lift bonds as S&P 500 waivers. Markets wrap Apple plans to make it easier to. Below are your comments. Can't fund our own country, no business trying to fund someone else's. Every news article keeps showing Schumer's face about passing the bill when the truth of matters is that Schumer is only one out of 87 senators that voted to pass the bill, and if Schumer had had his way, they would have shut down again. Thumbs up, good. Stop aid to all other countries. America first. Close the border, round them up and deport them. Keep enough to harvest crops. Good job, i.e. no aid to Israel or the Ukraine. I do not want why money given to either. Israel has milked the U.S. for over 50 years. Each year their aid package is larger than the next 10 highest aid packages to other countries. End. Think about that. They need to lock Schumer in a room with the squad and a bunch of knives. Next news. Russian artist who used supermarket price tags to criticize Ukraine war faces verdict. Reuters. A Russian artist who replaced supermarket price tags with messages calling for an end to Moscow's war in Ukraine is expected to learn her fate in court on Thursday, with a state prosecutor asking for her to be jailed for 8 years. Critics say the case of Alexandra Skochelenko, 33, is part of a crackdown on anyone who speaks out against Russia's special military operation that has led to nearly 20,000 detentions and over 800 criminal cases. Below are your comments. Meanwhile, back in the U.S., Trump is studying his buddy's methods closely to see how he can jail his critics when he becomes dictator for life in 2024. One can't but help feeling sorry for her, but the quickest way to end the war is for Ukraine and Russia to negotiate a peace agreement. Was she acting independently, or was she a paid activist of some foreign entity trying to attack Russia? If the former, then she should be let free. International liberalism, like its communist forebears, uses paid agitators to disrupt societies so it can worm its way in and eventually control those. This is what you get when you elect a bully who has so thin skin he gets a rash with a disagreement. Does the penalty fit the crime? Someone is so insecure they are scared by the dark. Next news. Biden, Xi declare progress after concluding 4-hour summit. Bloomberg. Joe Biden and his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping concluded a 4-hour summit with the U.S. President, saying the discussions made real progress. Most read from Bloomberg. Hamas mastermind who tricked Israel is top target in Gaza tunnel. Fed-friendly data lift bonds as stocks struggle. Markets wrap Biden. Xi declare progress after concluding 4-hour summit. Xi says China seeks to be Fr. IENDS with US, won't fight, hot war. Elon Musk calls anti-Semitic post on X the actual truth. The 2L. Below are your comments. If the US wants to improve relations with China, a good place to start would be to come clean about the origins of COVID. COVID was in the US the summer of 2019. What was thought to be the e-cigarette vaping illness, Avali, which peaked in September 2019, was really the first COVID wave in the world. It is foolish to believe China Communist will honor any agreement. Look at the Paris Climate Agreement. NT. Despite agreeing to reduce carbon emissions, CCP continued to be one of the world's worst polluters. It similarly has no regard for human rights or stealing intellectual property. Talk is cheap. Biden's biggest accomplishment, the other side is willing to pick up the phone when called. Wow. Next news. Putin to face another case as Russia started preparing famine in Ukraine even before invasion. Ukrainska Pravda. Russian President Vladimir Putin may face a new war crime case as experts and international lawyers have gathered evidence that shows that Russia began preparations for a famine in Ukraine even before the military invasion. Below are your comments. It is very surprising that Western nations do not understand Ukraine's warning about Russia's threat. Baltic nations and Poland do. It is very important to realize how vicious Russian Empire is, which Moscow's orthodoxy fully supports. Russia is fighting tooth and nail not to lose its foothold. Everyone wonders why Putin invaded Ukraine. It's not so complicated. Putin hates Ukrainians because they don't want to be Russian. It's as simple as that. If Putin had his way, every single Ukrainian on earth would be dead. I would trust very much those lawyer and ICC if they would do the same in Gaza and other areas affected by wars. Ukrainian grain farmers complained about the coward Russian military stealing their grain at the beginning of Russia's thieving invasion. Historically, this is not the first time Russia has left Ukraine famished. Hopefully it will not succeed like Stalin's first one did. Next news. David Cameron visits the Ukrainian port of Odessa, his first overseas trip as the UK's top diplomat. Associated Press. David Cameron travelled Thursday to the Ukrainian port of Odessa in his first overseas trip as Britain's new foreign minister, and pledged that the UK would continue providing military support until Ukraine is victorious in its war with Russia. Cameron, a former prime minister who returned to government in a surprise appointment Monday in a cabinet shuffle, said he wanted to make Ukraine his first diplomatic destination, and met Wednesday with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Below are your comments. Since when Brit has done interference in other countries, and made a difference, of course in Iraq and Afghanistan, Brits along with U.S. had no achievement, but casualties. This is how the UK solves their financial problems. Hope Cameron spoke differently to Zelensky in private than was said in public. Cooler heads need to prevail in the UK. It has been too shrill all along. Maybe it was a surprise that the former Right Honourable was brought back, but with the state of the Tory part, why anything was becoming possible. UK must not be doing well bringing the crook back to power. Better talk peace and stop the proxy war. The Ukrainians are the victims. Next news. Russia could be planning major offensive for mid-December. The new voice of Ukraine. Russian dictator Vladimir Putin has a habit of claiming propaganda victories before announcing his presidential bids. Below are your comments. Nothing is going to change in Ukraine. Russia can't be trusted on any agreement and Ukraine is fighting for their lives. Europe is for the most part stepping up support along with Canada, South Korea, Japan and the US. Russia will eventually be pushed out of Ukraine and the world will be bet. Putin is done as a leader and there can be no peace agreement between him and Ukraine. That will never happen and the sooner Russia realizes that, the better off they will be. They need to elect a totally different set of leaders and get rid of Putin's henchmen. If they don't, they are done as a No matter what happens around Russia or anywhere else, Putin will win his election with more than 90% of the votes as usual. Remember, as Putin says, it doesn't matter who votes, but who counts the votes. Over 1,300 Russian soldiers were bleep in the last 24 hours. Russia will not have much left by the end of this year burning through their own people like that. Put some 9 grams in Putin's head for his re-election. Next news. Imagine there may be no help. Conclusions of U.S. Special Representative's visit to Ukraine. Ukrainska Pravda. Penny Pritzker, U.S. Special Representative for Ukraine's recovery, has suggested that officials imagine how the country could survive economically without U.S. aid during her first visit to Ukraine. Source: Ukrainska Pravda with reference to a source familiar with the talks. Andriy Hunder, the president of the American Chamber of Commerce in Ukraine details. Pritzker met with President Volodymyr Zelensky, the Prime Minister and government officials, the Chairman of the Parliament and American Busey. Below are your comments. The boat is sinking, the rats ran, oil painting thumbs up. Ukraine cannot survive without Western help. The U.S. aid is right now paying for everything in Ukraine, including salaries of workers who run every thing in the country, according to comments you hear. It was very entertaining to watch, but like all good things have an end. Lack of funds and a steep decline in viewership has forced the studio to cancel the series after the second season. Zelensky has been nominated as Best Actor in the Drama Department in his role as the lead beggar. The spigot is about to be turned off. Not one penny more for Ukraine! Exclamation mark. Exclamation mark. Next news. Sweden's NATO bid risks further delay in Turkish parliament. Bloomberg. A Turkish parliamentary committee said it wants to see a written anti-terrorism roadmap from Sweden before approving the Nordic country's accession to NATO, raising the prospect of further delays to the military alliance's already drawn-out expansion plans. Most read from Bloomberg. Hamas masterman who tricked Israel is top target in Gaza tunnels. Aston Martin owner Lawrence Stroll sells F1 Team S. Take at £1 billion valuation. Friendly data lift bonds as S&P 500 waivers. Markets. WR. Below are your comments. I bet NATO wished they never heard of Turkey. Fork Ankara's demands. Castrate Turkey's veto power and let Sweden in. Sweden isn't perfect, but what NATO country is? At least Sweden is a dependable ally, unlike the treacherous Turks. It's time to change some rules. No single veto, just look at Sen. Troubleful actions in Senate. I hope the parliament puts this whole thing on ice indefinitely. Before adding new members mindlessly, solidarity among current members must be improved. Otherwise, what is the point? Erdogan grandstanding. I'll bet that Sweden is tuned into NATO and officially more so than unreliable Turkey. Next news. Brazil police bleep black person every 4 hours, report. AFP. Police violence in Brazil bleep the equivalent of more than one black person every 4 hours last year, disproportionately hitting the Afro-Brazilian population, a report said Thursday. The number of blacks bleeped by police in Brazil was far higher than in the United States, another country where all allegations of racism and excessive police violence have been in the spotlight. Below are your comments. So if literally everywhere they go, people have a problem with them, is it reasonable to say, maybe just maybe they're prone to criminal activity? You have to ask yourself who are committing the crimes then. It likely correlates with the number shot. Common sense, folks. It is entirely possible that they are the one doing the lion's share of crime, like here. Just can't seem to play by the rules. Who is committing most of the crimes in Brazil, US, Europe, anywhere a certain demographic has settled in numbers? And the rate of them offing each other far exceeds the police rate. Those people commit the most crimes, the most violent crimes, and fail to obey orders from authority figures. They get what they deserve and no one feels bad. Next news. Every US dollar must work. Why Biden needs special representative in Ukraine. Ukrainska Pravda. Penny Pritzker, U.S. Special Representative for Ukraine's recovery, who recently visited Kyiv, has several functions she fulfills. Source. Ukrainska Pravda, with reference to a source in diplomatic circle and a source in the government data. ILS. The Ukrainska Pravda's article reads that Pritzker has been appointed to coordinate processes between various U.S. agencies and structures that provide support to Ukraine. Below are your comments. You need her to keep an eye on corrupt Ukrainians selling American arms to Hamas. Ukraine still refuses to allow anyone from the U.S. Inspector General's office into Ukraine. I wonder why? Is money all Ukraine cares about? Every U.S. dollar must work here at home, where so many are existing nowadays in dire straits. In San Diego alone, we have 8,000 homeless people on sidewalks, with the fastest growing group being elderly seniors. In what world are people in other continents deserving of our taxes with 14? Wrong. The American taxpayers' money needs to stop being stolen by these Ukrainian criminals. Next news. Zelensky tells PABSEC Russia no longer able to use Black Sea as springboard to destabilize other countries. The new voice of Ukraine. Russia is no longer able to use the Black Sea as a springboard to destabilize other countries, and Ukraine and its partners has been able to provide adequate security at sea, President Volodymyr Zelensky said in his address to the Parliamentary Assembly of the Black Sea Economic Cooperation (PABSEC) on November 16. Below are your comments. Russians still converting their ships into submarines? Love it. Another Ukraine saves the world moment for you, Zelensky? What a grandiose dictator you really are. Is this comedian still trying to convince people he's gonna win? This guy never stops telling the lies just so he can get more funds for his bank accounts. I think Putin and Russia will try and destabilize any country with its misinformation propaganda in the social media. It takes only minutes to send a lie, get millions upset ready to take action, and even if found out later all was a lie, too late. Russia is excellent at that. So there is a cant. Empty talk of a comic actor. Next news. Chinese leader Xi gets standing ovation at banquet with U.S. executives. The Hill. Chinese President Xi Jinping received a standing ovation Wednesday night as he took the stage to address a dinner with business executives at a summit of Indo-Pacific leaders in California. In his address, Xi appeared open to cooperation with the U.S., telling the crowd, "We are in an era of challenges and changes." Below are your comments. If you have a huge market like China for your CRRPS, wouldn't you stand up for the emperor? Lol, bet you all my money Tim and Elon were the first to stand up when Xi entered the room. Ha $. Talk. It is unconscionable that American companies might pay thousands of dollars to join a welcome dinner hosted by the very same Chinese Communist Party. Officials who have facilitated a genocide against millions of innocent men, women, and children in Xinjiang, Gallagher lied. Standing O. Lol, room full of money launderers all see the golden ticket. I'm betting Tim Cook, Apple, was the first one to stand and clap vigorously. Companies supporting the enemy, terrible. Next news. Republican senators raise significant concerns on U.S. firearms export pause. Reuters. A group of 46 Republican U.S. senators asked the Commerce Department on Thursday to answer questions about its October 27 decision to temporarily stop issuing export licenses for most civilian firearms and ammunition for our non-governmental users. The letter, signed by Senators Ted Budd, Mitch McConnell, John Thune and others, said they had significant concerns about the justifications for and ramifications of this pause, and said it puts at stake U.S. commercial and economic interests as well as you. Below are your comments. Commerce Department said an urgent review will assess the risk of firearms being diverted to entities or activities that promote regional instability, violate human rights, or fuel criminal activities. For the USA, that's called economic gun sales. For anyone else we identify doing this, it's America is the #1 arms peddler in the world. Considering we already banned the export of certain computer chips, I don't see a problem. The U.S. is the world's #1 arms dealer. Next news. Air Force commander posts footage of downing of Shahed drones. Ukrainska Pravda. Lieutenant General Mykola Oleshchuk, commander of the Air Force of Ukraine, has thanked the soldiers for the effective destruction of Russian drones and posted a video recording of their response to He drones of the past day. Below are your comments. Russia is such a bad joke. Putin is on his knees begging Iran for drones and begging North Korea for its shells. All in a fight with tiny Ukraine that they are losing in a stalemate. Russia needs to just leave Ukraine and stop embarrassing themselves. The future of warfare is whoever can repel drones wins. Pretty soon tanks will be fitted with anti-drone munitions and microwave systems so they drop from sky. Infantry will have similar supporting systems. Then the balance will tip back to large powers like the US, who can leverage drones fa. Good bleeping, my friends. Congratulations. Worst part of dealing with 23mm was that the typical tracer ratio was 1/5. Dodge the tracer and his 4 invisible buddies. Oh. Next news. Hodges gives vision of goal of Ukraine's counter-offensive, praises impact on Russian fleet. The new voice of Ukraine. The ultimate aim of Ukraine's counter-offensive should be to force Russian invasion forces out of Crimea. Former U.S. Army Europe Commander Ben Hodges told Radio NV in an interview on November 15. Below are your comments. The Russian Navy never wanted this war and wishes it never happened. The sub was an expensive loss, and hopefully another expensive sub or ship will be lost by the actions of Ukraine's heroic men and women. Ukraine sustained a slow but steady advance. 2 miles forward, and 1 mile backward will get them to the Russian-Ukraine border in due time. Impatience loses wars, patience and bleep wins wars. Russia will report they're not being forced out of Crimea, they're simply relocating to more advantageous positions. Time to suit up this corporate politician in uniform and get him into the frontline trenches. Good way to end his warmongering and bloated pension. It's a success, because it's a failure. Next news. Ukraine's defense intelligence reveals details of special operations in Crimea. Ukrainska Pravda. Ukraine's defense intelligence has posted a video of the preparation and implementation of missions on boats and jet skis to the territory of the temporarily occupied Crimea. Source: Defense Intelligence of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine. Quote, on jet skis, to the occupied Crimea. Unique footage of the preparation and conduct of raids into the territory of temporarily occupied Crimea, carried out by the soldiers of the Stuna and Bratstvo units of Timur's Special Forces of the Defense Int. Below are your comments. So have the goals been met yet of the denazification, demilitarization, and deterrence of NATO and Ukraine? 2 years now? We've been telling you orc trolls this for 2 years. Putin won't stop until he's assassinated or natural death. Boats and jet skis? That should win the war. Pure propaganda. SF Rock. Who the hell would reveal the plan in a war, if it's true? Z is perfect comedian. Next news. Haley vows to defund the UN as much as possible, if elected. The Hill. Republican presidential candidate Nikki Haley, a former United Nations ambassador, vowed Wednesday to defund the UN as much as possible, if elected to the Oval Office, but she stopped short of saying the U.S. should withdraw from the international organization. Fox News host Sean Hannity in an interview pressed Haley on whether she agreed with. Below are your comments. Probably BC we'd need them to step in for future elections like in banana republics that the GOP is trying to create. Haley too, she's as extreme as the rest of them. That's nice, but you also want everyone to be verified on social media and then some. Small change, waste of time, and how could this be a good idea? What are the benefits? Does it just make you feel good? I don't get it, Ms. Republicans want to turn this country into a fortress with no one coming in or going out. Their view of the world is myopic and uninformed. Another reason to not vote for her. Next news. Biden says he still believes Xi Jinping is a dictator. CNN. President Joe Biden told MJ Lee he still believes Chinese President Xi Jinping is a dictator, but the two leaders made progress in their relationship after today's meeting outside San Francisco. Below are your comments. Hopefully the rest of the West's leaders believe this and understand, combat Xi's strategy towards global dominance. I'm sure Biden asked the communist dictator in private if he could call him a dictator. Biden wants it to look as though he's there in America's best interest, not China's. I'm sure he also asked when the Biden crime family expect their next payoff for selling our country out to our number one competitor. He's a dictator in the sense that he is a guy who runs a country that is totally different than ours, and runs a lot smoother, with far fewer wars and people in jail. Well, he didn't let Xi get home before he threw cold water on the visit. Man, that is just not smart. Biden is an Israel-first Zionist. Next news. Ukraine produces dozens of analogs of Iranian kamikaze drones per month. Ukrainska Pravda. Ukraine produces dozens of drones every month which are analogs of Iranian-made Shahed kamikaze drive ones. Source: Forbes with reference to Alexander Kamyshin, the Minister of Strategic Industries of Ukraine, at the annual meeting of the European Business Association. Details. Kamyshin said that the defense industry is currently making a significant contribution to the country's economic growth and should become its main sector in the future. Below are your comments. Analog creates havoc when Russia cannot stop it or seen it coming compared with computerized which Russia can electronic jammed. Start using those drones on Russian electric generation facilities and oil refineries. Turn the lights and heat off on the Russians this winter. God help Ukraine. Russia created this mess. Maybe we will wake up one morning and hear Putin was pushed off a high-rise building. Drone Kiev. Next news. Her shows video of Ukrainian special forces training for and executing raid on Russian-occupied Crimea. The new voice of Ukraine. The Ukrainian Defense Ministry's main intelligence directorate or HER has released a video showing Tuna and Brotherhood soldiers, part of the HUR's Timur Special Forces Unit, training and then executing a daring raid on Ukraine's Russian-occupied Crimea on jet skis. Below are your comments. I see a new Sea-Doo marketing campaign. You want to do more with your jet ski than just ride it? Buy a Sea-Doo today and see just how much more exciting a Sea-Doo can be. And Yahoo's AI would not let me make Sea-Doo one word. They'll end up getting wiped just like the group who went in September. Definition of insanity. When Ukrainian pilots master flying the F-16s, they should be able to wreak havoc on Russian positions in Crimea. Dark enough to show nothing, but telling you what they want you to think and believe. Is their average age 43 too? Next news. Apple's Cook BlackRock's Fink among CEO guests at Xi dinner. Bloomberg. U.S. business titans including Apple Inc.'s Tim Cook and BlackRock Inc.'s Larry Fink are set to attend a dinner with Chinese President Xi Jinping on Wednesday, as he tries to woo foreign capital to the world's second-largest economy. Most read from Bloomberg. Hamas mastermind who tricked Israel is top target in Gaza tunnel. Fed-friendly data lift bonds as S&P 500 wavers. Markets wrap Apple plans to make it easier to text between iPhones and Androids. Biden, Xi declare progress after conch. Below are your comments. If Larry Fink doesn't expect China to invade Taiwan anytime soon, neither should any of you. The worthless CEO kowtow crew. Anything for $1. Shark fin soup, wontons and spring rolls. Meeting with Biden was a U.S.-less photo op. This is the real reason Xi came to the U.S., and where the real negotiations will take place. With the real leadership of the U.S. traitors. Next news. Biden cautions China on election interference in Taiwan. The Hill. President Biden cautioned China against interfering in Taiwan's upcoming elections following a meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping on Wednesday. I made clear I didn't expect any interference, Biden said in a press conference following the hours-long meeting with Xi. Taiwan will hold presidential elections in January, casting additional uncertainty around the future of the. Below are your comments. Biden, I made clear I didn't expect any interference. He is doing the interference with China's internal affair. If they did interfere and the opposition won, there's nothing we could do about it. Creating more political turmoil in Taiwan would only benefit China. Only the Democrats can interfere with the Taiwanese elections. Biden cautions China on election interference in Taiwan. Did Xi caution Joe on election interference in 2020 and 2024? Next news. EU may punish Poland for blocking Ukraine's borders. Ukrainska Pravda. The European Commission could launch an infringement procedure against Poland if the Polish authorities do not resolve the problem of holiers blocking border crossings with Ukraine. Source. A journalist from Polish radio station RMF-FM in Brussels, reported by European Pravda. Details. The European Commission has noted that the Polish authorities are obliged to ensure the flow of goods from Ukraine through the so-called solidarity corridors. Below are your comments. Poland is doing the right thing. Poland should make a deal with Russia for traditional Polish lands in western Ukraine. Why? Poland knows what kind of degenerates reside in corrupt Ukraine. What are borders? Lol. Poland making enemies of allies in the process of Russia threatening. Nice, make your buddies add before someone punches you, then bet you will expect them to help instantly. Next news. Switzerland pledges support for creation of special tribunal for Russia's war. Kyiv Independent. Switzerland supports the creation of an international special tribunal to investigate Russia's crime of aggression against Ukraine, the Swiss Foreign Ministry said on November 16. Below are your comments. Where is the UN on this? And in Gaza? What good is the UN? Way to go, Switzerland. Would have been better by a huge magnitude if you had transferred the anti-drone ammo for Jeopard's T-hat you took NATO funds to build. Yes, like Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Belgium and now the Swiss. Look into your histories and see who should have been brought up on war crime charges. How do you think the Germans financed WW2 in part? Yes, all those treasures in gold, gems and silver flowed into the Swiss banking system. As the old S. And ignores the atrocities committed by the United States and NATO for its previous wars. Next news. AP, Estonian PM Kallas interested in NATO's top job. Kyiv Independent. Estonian Prime Minister Kaja Kallas has indicated her interest in becoming the next NATO Secretary General, the Associated Press reported on November 15. Below are your comments. I have no idea about my husband's business activities. Great, what hypocrisy and double standards. Keep officially hating Russia and make millions thanks to Russia with your husband's transport company. Why? I would like it. It would make me laugh. Do you think Air Putlin would think a female leader is formidable? This would make him so angry. He would have to bow down to her. Doesn't she have husband that was caught stealing Western aid money meant for Ukraine and giving it to his Russian business partners? God help us. Her party. The Reform Party is the new name of the old Estonian Nazi party, plenty of Nazis in Estonia and the Baltics. Putin should get to work. Next news. Panda Watch. More pandas might be coming to the U.S. after multiple zoos had to send theirs away, China's top lead. teases. Insider. Xi Jinping told business leaders that China is ready to strike new deals to send pandas back to the U.S. Below are your comments. Not the answer to a better world of trade, prosperity and peace. Xi is playing games. His policies are still aggressive, disruptive against Western democracies. China will develop, Soviet, failure like Russia. A coming wave of pandemonium? After they whisked them away just last week? Anyway, we could diversify and raise other cute creatures, such as koalas and red pandas, etc. We have to wait for the consent of the Chinese people. I don't foresee the USA getting any new pandas anytime soon. After spending half a day talking and having lunch together, Biden calls Xi a dictator behind his CK. That is a slap on the face for Xi. Next news. Xi Jinping suggests pandas may be sent to California as symbol of China-US friendship. Next shark. Chinese President Xi Jinping suggested that China may send more pandas to the U.S. as a symbol of friendship during his meeting with President Joe Biden for the 30th Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation (APEC) Global Trade Summit in San Francisco. The symbol of friendship, pandas have symbolized the U.S.-China friendship since 1972. Xi mentioned Americans' reluctance to say goodbye to the pandas and expressed China's readiness to collaborate with the U.S. on panda conservation with the aim to Below are your comments. But first, Taiwan will get a replacement pair of panda. Then CA and DC. Panda is traveling tonight on a plane. I can see the red tail lights heading for Spain. And I can see Panda waving goodbye. Oh, it looks like Panda, must be the clouds in my eyes. Next news. Border guards of Offensive Guard capture Russian intelligence officer. Ukrainska Pravda. While performing combat missions on the Svatov front, border guards of one of the combat units of He 15th Mobile Detachment captured a 38-year-old Russian intelligence officer. Source: State Border Guard Service of Ukraine. Details. The prisoner said he previously worked as a repairman in the southeast of the Russian Federation, Fr. where he was mobilized in October 2022. Below are your comments. If he had been an officer with intelligence, he would have surrendered. Border guards of Offensive Guard, how much American money Ukrainians spend on Met? This person is a man or woman? If it is so important to report it, why they blur the face of this person? Russian failure. Well, they must not be very intelligent, lol. Next news. Biden, Xi agree to restart military communications. Military Times. President Joe Biden and China's Xi Jinping left their first meeting in a year showcasing modest agreements to re-establish military communications. Below are your comments. There is no parity in our business relationship. We cannot buy land in China. We cannot own a business in China. On the other hand, China expects all of these things from us. Talk is cheap. Even as we try to make peace with their leaders, they have trolls and comments showing us their true motivatio. Biden was ready to talk about double scoop ice cream. Sadly, he never got the chance to shine. Last year, they were our greatest threat. The CCP did not pay Hunter Biden all those consulting fees for nothing. Exclamation mark. Exclamation mark. Gibbon handed Xi the keys. Next news. Black Sea is no longer a foothold for Russia, they hide their warships, Zelensky. Ukrainska Pravda. A. President Volodymyr Zelensky said that Russia is no longer able to use the Black Sea as its own and Ukraine has managed to seize the initiative and force the Russians to try and hide their warships. Below are your comments. Angriest, richest comedian ever. Actually, the Slava-class Moskva was just one of 4 lesser flagships. The other 3 Slava ships are elsewhere, and who's to say Putin won't relocate one of them to the Black Sea to replace the Moskva? So those 3 other Slavas should be considered high-priority targets as a preventive measure. And that's N. Zelensky, you can't beat Russian Federation in any sea. Stop dreaming. Please subscribe to my channel. And if you like it, please thumbs up.